Hi, I'm Ron Wilcox, and I teach marketing at the Darden School, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about today how we put together our first year program. It's a program that we feel very strongly about at Darden. We use the case method to teach a number of different things to our students, but over the years we've discovered a sequence that we think works in terms of taking students from really little business knowledge to a point where they have a real tangible set of skills and ideas that they can bring out to the marketplace when they leave Darden. We start in marketing by focusing mostly on the numbers. We do that because we find a lot of students come into the program thinking that marketing is all about advertising and nothing else. So we kind of want to dismiss that notion very quickly. So when we get them in the door, our first cases really focus in on metrics, how to measure things, whether things make sense from a financial standpoint in the marketing world. Things like margins, cannibalization, return on investments, the very nuts and bolts of marketing decision making that are going to allow them to make smarter strategic decisions later. We follow that with a module on consumer behavior, really the starting point of all marketing activity. How do people think? How do people feel when they come to the marketplace? When they do decide to take out their wallet and hand over their money, why are they doing that? Under what circumstances are they likely to do that? And how can businesses approach thinking about that buying process in a way that's likely to maximize their ability to influence people to buy their products? We then also, once we figure out how people think and behave in these markets, we then take the students really on a trip into the minds of retailers. So many of the companies that recruit here and probably recruit at your school really are not selling directly to consumers. They take their products, they make them, they go out, they might sell them to a wholesaler or a retailer, and they have their own very different set of incentives. So we take a student and say, all right, you're making Tide from Procter & Gamble. You're from Procter & Gamble, you're making Tide, you're going to sell that to a retailer. What's the retailer thinking? What are their motivations? When we cover topics like slotting allowances, margins to the retailer, the tension that can sometimes arise with a big brand as a company tries to balance pushing products through the distribution system and pulling consumers towards buying their products. And how can those conflicts be resolved within the context of that important relationship between the manufacturers and the retailers? We then really at that point in the course have taken most of the data we see in the cases as a given, but we want to expose our first year students to some notion of marketing research. How do we go out into the world, measure consumer interests in new products, topics like conjoint analysis, topics like advertising experiments, emerging topics like customer lifetime value, which were becoming more and more important in the marketplace. We want even our first year students to have a good handle on that because we think they're likely to see that in their first year summer internships and beyond. And finally, the course finally gets back to the point where students probably thought it should have begun all along, and that is with media. We go into advertising and new forms of media like Google Ads and emerging forms of social media that really companies are using to communicate their messages. What are the tangible nuts and bolts of that? How is that executed? And strategically, how does a company think about which modes of communication are likely to be cost effective in terms of selling their product? We end the first year with a very comprehensive strategy simulation that looks at marketing in the context of both financial decision making and operations decision making to try to bring marketing into the fold of the enterprise perspective. How one not just views marketing as a function, but integral to the life of the company as a whole.